Florence Nightingale whisked through each bedside, aiding traumatized soldiers with blown limbs and ripped flesh hanging from their tattered bodies. She saved more lives of soldiers in just one day than the rest of the soldiers on the battlefield. How did this tall, slender, soft-spoken, mild-mannered, yet determined young woman manage to brave through the ravages of war? Florence saved lives during a time when a woman sharing spaces with soldiers on a battlefield was unheard of. Florence's father, William Nightingale, inherited Lea Hurst estates. The estate originally belonged to William's great-uncle, Peter Nightingale, who never had children of his own. Therefore, he left William the entire estate with additional property, land, and thousands of British pounds. William, now wealthy and stable, married the love of his life, a woman named Fanny. The newlyweds celebrated their honeymoon in Naples, Italy. The couple decided to remain in Naples and reside there for a few years longer. Eventually, the couple found out they were expecting their firstborn, a healthy baby girl named Parthenope. This name was inspired by the couple's love for travel and history. In fact, Parthenope was an ancient settlement in Greece. Later, once their firstborn was old enough to continue traveling to the next destination, the small family landed in Florence, Italy. And to their surprise, they were expecting their second child. As mentioned prior, the Nightingales started a tradition of naming their children after their place of travels. Hence, Fanny gave birth to another healthy baby girl named Florence. She was born May 12, 1820. The following winter brought the Nightingales back to their homeland, England. Florence's upbringing by her parents instilled in her and her sister the love and value of education, as well as good manners, empathy, and humanitarian deeds. It also helped that her maternal grandfather served as an abolitionist. Florence and her sister Parthenope were fortunate to have had a father like William who supported equal education for women, which was frowned upon during the mid-19th century society. Women were expected to be virtuous and later marry and become delicate, graceful homemakers. Moreover, if a woman become a spinster, she is now under the protection and care of her father. In this case, she is expected to cater to her father as well. In the year 1838, Florence, now 18, grew into an attractive, slender, tall, reddish hair, finely dressed, polished young woman. Not to mention, she was also charming and possessed a radiant smile. On a family trip throughout Europe, she met an English-born Parisian named Mary Clark. Miss Clark was known as the eccentric character in town. She disliked the upper-class, snotty British women and preferred the company of intellectual men instead. However, Mary developed a liking for Florence's ideas regarding women's rights in the arena of education. Unlike Florence's mother and older sister, Miss Clark bravely embodied the reality of women in higher education and being respected professionally. As previously mentioned, Florence's family was a major influence she needed to become a nurse. Honoring education, as well as the desire to care for the misfortunate, became her passion. So in 1844, against her parents' wishes, she announced her interest in the field of nursing. In the mid-19th century, amongst the wealthy societies, nursing was known to be a dirty, undignified work. You could hear the latest scuttlebutt, which sounded like this: a well-bred young woman such as Florence should never. Welcome back to the Thought Cafe. I am here drinking a warm cup of green tea and enjoying my Florence Nightingale story. Now, one portion of the story that was pretty peculiar to me was a mid-19th century upper echelon's belief that nursing was a dirty job. Now, anyone know today, either know someone who is a nurse or themselves are a nurse, know that it's a highly regarded work and it pays very well. The only thing I can think of is, boy, have we come a long ways in the field of nursing. And in addition to that, I couldn't help but to believe or understand that whether it's the mid-19th century or currently, the super wealthy detest working. So any job or career is dirty to them. Florence, now well into her mid-20s, the intellectual beauty was fast in getting the gaze of male suitors. Politician and poet Richard Malkington Milnes was persistent in getting Florence's attention. However, after a 9-year courtship, Florence remained dedicated to her nursing duties and later broke off the courtship. She feared the relationship would interfere with her goals as a successful nurse. Florence Nightingale, The Courageous Life of the Legendary Nurse by Catherine Reeve wrote, "Every time a person gave up a dream for social approval, the world is put back, she believed," quote unquote. It's also important to mention Florence's strong ties to academic Benjamin Twalt, in which she rebuked his desires to marry her. This relationship was also aborted, as was her prior relationships. Traveling into Rome in 1847, Florence met politician Sidney Hubert, who served as the Secretary of War. He and his wife were honeymooning and struck up a close relationship with Florence. The couple later facilitated Florence's nursing career in the Crimean War. Florence's father, William, supported her with an annual stipend of 500 English pounds, which is roughly 40,000 British pounds or 65,000 US dollars today, affording his daughter a very comfortable lifestyle. With this being said, Florence continued her love of travel and landed in Egypt in 1850, where she wrote lengthy letters to her sister Parthenope about her experience there. She later landed in Germany, where she visited a Lutheran religious community, which granted her the opportunity to meet Pastor Theodor Filtner, who worked for the ill and deprived community. Florence's most notable work was during the Crimean War between Russia and the Ottoman Empire. In 1854, at the Skrutar Barracks on the Asian side of Istanbul, Turkey, Florence volunteered as head nurse in charge of 38 nurses. The team of nurses immediately noticed the grave unsanitary conditions the soldiers were in. Catherine Reeve continued to write, "In row after horrific row, they lay on the floor or on thin mattresses held up by rotting wood. Their foul blankets teemed with lice, and the stench of overflowing latrines poisoned the air. Meals were inedible and often served raw, quote unquote. Florence and her League of Nurses made enormous improvements within 6 months of being there with simple hygienic practices. Most compelling evidence was implementing the habit of washing hands before treating a patient. This habit alone cut down on the spread of infectious bacteria diseases spread by doctors themselves never washing their hands in between injured soldiers. In addition, the doctors used tainted, unclean instruments as well. In the year 1855, the Sanitary Commission were contacted by the nurses, reporting harsh and even fatal conditions. This was due to the lack of proper ventilation, sewage never being properly flushed out. Florence additionally claimed to the Sanitary Commission were low supplies, poor nutrition, and overexhausted soldiers. While serving nurse duties during the Crimean War, Florence was given the nickname the Lady with the Lamp. The soldiers felt an angelic presence when they saw Florence illuminating the hallways and corridors of the hospital with her signature lantern in one hand. Groomed with confidence and coupled with humility, it should be noted that Florence herself never took credit for her groundbreaking work as head nurse in Istanbul, Turkey. However, she was recognized for her work in the war by higher officials, awarding her praise by creating the Nightingale Fund Foundation. This foundation was established to aid in properly training future nurses in the practice of creating a sanitary environment. It was also imperative to point out the importance of sterilizing instruments after each use, proper ventilation, correct bandaging of wounds, and even proper nutrition. Later, Florence was granted 45,000 English pounds from the Nightingale Funds. Thereupon, in 1860, she opened the very first nursing school in London called the Nightingale Training School at St. Thomas Hospital. She had future nurses all around the Western world attending her school. Nightingale Training School also influenced and prepared nurses overseas in America during the Civil War. In 1883, Florence was awarded the very first card holder of the Royal Red Cross. Further, she was also given the title Honorary Freedom from the City of London. Today, International Nurses Day, IND, is celebrated on her birthday, May 12th. On August 13, 1910, Florence died from age-related complications at the age of 90. Plans for burial at Westminster Abbey were declined by her family. The family settled for East Willows Churchyard of St. Margaret's Church instead. Catherine Reeve would end this story with a statement. Florence Nightingale wanted the world to move forward. She thought that in nursing, as in everyday human activity, constant progress is the law of life, quote unquote. Thank you for watching the Florence Nightingale story. What are your thoughts about her life? And today's side note, do you know anyone in the field of nursing? Are you a nurse? I would love to hear your story as well. So please like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Until next time, because everyone has a story. Ciao.